Hello and welcome to this video, where we try to answer the question of whether we will sail with the Norwegian Cruise Line again. Now you're probably wondering why we are doing a video on this topic, and the simple answer is that it's a question me and my wife have been struggling to answer, and in a cathartic way, why not argue the point with myself in the hopes of being able to help us come to an answer. The problem that we have is there are lots of elements of the NCL experience we love, but there are some that we hate. And whilst that is the same for every line we sail with, the experience usually is a lot higher for the stuff we love than the stuff we hate. But with NCL, it's much closer to 50-50. It is also further complicated by the fact that so many of the issues are in the run-up to the holiday itself. So by the time we come off the ship, much of it is out of our minds. So with all of that said, for the purposes of this video we will break down the things that we like and dislike about NCL, and see just how we do feel about the line away from the excitement of just stepping off the ship. If that sounds of interest to you, why not give this video a like, and better yet, why not comment below with your thoughts on NCL, and let's see what the consensus is on the line. To try and decide whether we should sail with NCL again, we will break down our thoughts on the line to these areas: pre-cruise, check-in, entertainment, the onboard experience, food and drink, itineraries and value. This is something that has always been an issue with us and the line, and sadly it is something that has only gotten worse since we first sailed with them. Our first major issue came when, just a week out from sailing with them to Norway a few years back, I badly injured my foot and would need to be on crutches for the holiday. Having picked a room that was centrally located in the ship, I spoke to NCL to try and change to a room closer to a lift bank. This would actually be a cheaper room, but they simply refused unless I paid a huge fee for reasons. In fairness to the onboard staff, once on board, a change of room was offered without us asking for it, but as we'd already unpacked, we declined. The second major pre-cruise issue we've had with the line was pretty much the whole process of booking our last cruise with them. The website was broken when we tried to book, and you simply couldn't book anything online. That left us having to contact the line via phone. That would entail having to listen to nearly 25 minutes of trying to sell us things we didn't want, before even allowing us to book the cruise, and then we were only allowed to book after having to state that you either get us to book the cruise, or we'll leave it. It was quite an embarrassing situation really, and it seemed obvious that the person on the other end of the line likely got the majority of their pay from commissions on upsells. Sadly, things didn't get much better, as the website wasn't fixed at any point before we needed to book excursions and to make other updates, which led to more phone calls. But this time we would ring their UK line instead of their American one, and we did get a better service. We must also make mention of the line's less than honest advertising, and offers where a sail will often cost you more than the full price of the cruise the week before. And then there's a laughable free at sea offer, which is anything but free. So with all that said, we can only give a downvote for the line's pre-cruise experience, when it's been one of the worst of any travel related company we've ever dealt with. This is a tricky one to judge, as it is as much down to the local agents at your port of departure as it is down to the line itself. So far we have sailed from 3 different ports: Seattle, Southampton and Reykjavik, and each one has been smooth sailing, pun intended. The check-in process has always been well organised, and we have always got from arriving at the port to on board the ship quickly. But one minor issue we do have is that, unlike other lines, you cannot drop off your carry-on bags at your stateroom before they are ready for your full arrival. But for the check-in process, we'll give the line an upvote. This is something that actually first attracted us to the line, as we love to go to the theatre and saw that NCL offered West End or Broadway shows on board. These are of course only on their bigger ships, but we have also sailed on the line's smallest ship, so I think it is fair for us to judge across the board. When we first sailed with NCL, they had a great mix of musicians playing all over the ship, as well as great acts in the theatre. Our second trip saw a good range of acts in the theatre, but only limited options around the ship, whilst our last trip with them saw limited options both in the theatre and around the ship. The quality was also hit and miss in our last sailing, and they have now fallen behind the other lines that we sail with. So despite still enjoying their big theatre shows, this can only be a downvote sadly. We do like the more laid back nature of Norwegian, as we like to relax on holiday, and to really make the most of our time on shore, rather than having to rush back to the ship to get dressed up or to get there for an early dining slot. One of the things that first drew us to the line was their marketing around doing what you want, when you want, something that fits in with our style of holidaying, but we quickly found out that cruising with them just isn't like that, and it continues to move further from it. Their larger ships just have too many people on them compared to what is available, so if you want to do something, you either need to plan in advance, or pre-book, or of course queue. Other big issues are the amount of things that have an upcharge or cost extra, and on our last cruise, lots of the staff looked tired, overworked, and worst of all, disinterested. Despite the issues, it's still a good overall onboard experience, so we're going to give it an upvote, but if things continue the way they are, that will soon turn to a negative. This is something that's continued to get worse and worse to the point where it's now a big problem in our view. On our first cruise with them, we mostly ate in the buffet, which we enjoyed, but did have a hit or miss experience in their specialty restaurants. On our last cruise with them, we started in the buffet, but as well as having issues with the size of it that left nowhere to sit, it also meant that there were only limited options. So the food was repeated, and the quality was incredibly poor to the point where we just didn't enjoy it. We did love the indulged food hall, which although only offering a small menu, it was all freshly prepared and tasty. When we sail with some other lines, we love it when they mix up their menus to include dishes from the locations you are visiting, but that's just not something Norwegian tend to do. Another big issue we've always had with the line is their lack of an included cafe. Some ships do have a Starbucks, which isn't exactly our first choice of coffee shop, but their drinks are also not included in the normal drinks package, and you have to pay for the premium one. When other lines can include teas, coffees and food served in a traditional tea shop manner, NCL have been left behind. For us, the food and drink offering on NCL just simply has to get a downvote. This is somewhere that the line has always excelled for us, and thankfully it is something that they are continuing to excel at. They continue to have a strong offering in the main hubs of the Caribbean and the Mediterranean, and also operate in the traditional cruising regions of the Norwegian fjords, Alaska and the Greek Isles. For us though is their wide range of repositioning cruises, billed by the line as extraordinary journeys, that are port-heavy itineraries to more underused locations, and their offerings in places such as Africa and Asia really make them stand out over many other mainstream lines. For itineraries, we simply have to give them a well-deserved upvote. So it all comes down to what we believe is the value of the line. This is something that is difficult to decide on, as there are a few different ways of looking at it. Are you comparing their current value to how it was when we first sailed with them? Are you using their value when compared to other lines? Or are you comparing their value with other types of holiday? It seems unfair to compare them to previous cruises, as the cost of everything around the world has gone up vastly over the past few years, and as someone living in Britain, Brexit has led to not just rising costs to arrive anywhere in the world, but huge inflation and also a fall in currency. It is easy to compare them to other lines in terms of the cost of the holiday, but the value of it really comes down to the individual. There are some cruises available that are at a very reasonable cost, and we have to say that amongst the mainstream lines, we tend to find them a middle of the road line in terms of cost, and that is also where their quality sits for us. So on the face of it, they offer a good value. Sadly, with so many upsells, add-ons and must-pay extras, many of which are simply to have the basic cruise holiday you would expect and what you would get on other lines, the actual cost and value is slightly below average. Cost-wise, it still compares well to an all-inclusive holiday on land, and you still get all of the added benefits of cruising. So we are going to give them an upvote overall for this one, but if their costs still continue to rise and if their quality slips further, this is another one that will soon change. So, after going through all those points, it just highlights why it's been so tricky to try and decide whether Norwegian are right for us or not, and whether we should keep cruising with them. Over the 7 categories, several of them were really close as to whether they were an upvote or a downvote. With 4 upvotes and 3 downvotes, we cannot say that we will definitely sail with them again soon, or we won't sail with them again soon, but we will be keeping an eye on them. If they start to get a better reputation for their land-based staff, that will really help, and if they can cut out all the nickel and diming, that will really make the holiday experience better. But for now it will take the perfect itinerary and the great cost for us to sail with them. To answer the question, will we sail with Norwegian Cruise Line again? The answer can only be, maybe. So all that remains to be said is thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed our look at whether we'll cruise with NCL again, and see you next time.